6:18 p.m. on Riverway Boulevard. The evening commute halts as a city bus jerks violently. Acrid smoke pours from the engine. Panic erupts. The front doors are jammed. Daniel Moore, 39, a devoted single father, stops instantly. He hands his daughter, Emma, to a bystander. "Stay here, baby." He runs toward the fire. Inside, a young woman sits paralyzed, unable to move. Daniel's voice is a calm anchor. He forces the emergency exit, pulling passengers out. As he carries the last woman, their eyes lock. Daniel freezes. A ghost from a decade ago has returned. Daniel Moore leads a quiet life, a life defined by the rhythmic needs of an 8-year-old girl named Emma. Since his wife passed away shortly after Emma was born, his world has shrunk to the size of a school backpack and a toolbox. He works as a mobile avionics technician, a job that allows him the flexibility to be at the school gates by 3 p.m. every single day. He is a man of few words, preferring the steady hum of machines over the unpredictable nature of human conversation. His hands are often stained with grease, and his heart is shielded by a thick layer of protective routine. On this particular Tuesday, the sun is dipping low over the skyline, casting long, golden shadows across Riverway Boulevard. The air is thick with the smell of wet asphalt and street food. Emma is in the back seat, kicking her legs and talking excitedly about her art project, a series of drawings of invisible castles. Daniel listens with a small private smile, the kind he only reserves for her. Suddenly the world shifts. A loud bang, the sound of a high-pressure hose failing, echoes through the air like a gunshot. Ahead of them, a city bus begins to fishtail, trailing a plume of black, greasy smoke that obscures the road. The traffic grinds to a halt as people begin to realize the severity of the situation. Daniel doesn't hesitate. It's not a choice. It's a reflex ingrained in his soul from years of service. He pulls his sedan to the curb, hazard lights flashing. He looks at Emma in the rearview mirror. Her eyes are wide with curiosity and fear. His heart is hammering against his ribs, but his face remains a mask of absolute calm. "Emma, listen to me carefully. I need you to stay with this lady right here," he says, gesturing to a woman who had also stopped her car. "I'll be right back, I promise. Just like we practiced, okay? Focus on your castles." He doesn't wait for a reply. He sprints toward the bus. The heat is already intense, a shimmering wall of energy that makes the air taste like burnt rubber and ozone. The passengers inside are clawing at the glass, their faces distorted by primal terror. The front door is buckled, the frame twisted into a grotesque grin by the sheer heat of the engine fire. Daniel reaches the emergency release on the side of the bus. He yanks it with the strength of a man who spent 10 years in the Navy, muscles straining against the metal. The glass pops with a satisfying crack, and he climbs inside. The cabin is a nightmare, filled with a thick, choking haze that stings the eyes and burns the throat. "Stay low, cover your mouths, follow my voice," he commands, his voice dropping into the authoritative register of a leader who has seen the worst of the world. One by one, he guides them out, an elderly man clutching a briefcase as if it held his soul, a terrified student with headphones still around his neck, a mother with a crying toddler. He counts them as they pass him. He is the last barrier between them and the growing flames in the rear engine compartment. The roar of the fire is getting louder, a hungry beast devouring the plastic and fabric of the seats. Then he sees her. In the middle of the bus, slumped against a window, is a young woman. She isn't screaming. She isn't even moving. She is staring at the floor, her chest heaving in shallow, panicked gasps. She is in total shock, her body refusing to obey the survival instincts of her brain. The smoke is thickening around her, turning her into a silhouette of despair. Daniel moves to her side. He doesn't grab her roughly. He kneels in the aisle, ignoring the heat licking at his boots and the sweat stinging his eyes. "Hey, look at me," he says, his voice a low, steady baritone that cuts through the chaos. "Breathe with me, in and out. That's it, you're not alone. We're leaving now." Routine. He hooks his arm under her knees and back, lifting her as if she weighs nothing. He carries her out through the emergency hatch just as a localized explosion rattles the frame of the bus, sending a shower of sparks into the air. He sets her down on the grass, 50 yards away, far from the reach of the fuel lines and the heat. As he lowers her, her hair falls back from her face, The smoke clears for a heartbeat, and a stray street lamp illuminates her features. Daniel looks down, and the world stops spinning. The sirens in the distance fade into a dull, meaningless hum. The smell of fire is replaced by a phantom memory, the scent of jasmine and rain on a park bench a lifetime ago. "Daniel," the woman whispers, her voice cracked and small, her eyes searching his face with a disbelief that matches his own. He doesn't answer. He can't. His throat is tight, and his heart feels like it's being squeezed by a giant's hand. He looks at her, really looks at her, and sees the girl who broke his heart 10 years ago. Lena, the one who promised never to leave, and then did. Emma runs over then, wrapping her arms around his legs, crying and shaking. Daniel picks her up, holding her tightly, using his daughter's warmth as an anchor to keep from drifting away into the painful past. He checks the perimeter one last time, ensuring every soul is accounted for. The woman on the grass, Lena, is being attended to by paramedics. Someone calls out her name from a distance. "Lena! Lena! Are you okay?" The name hits him like a physical blow to the chest. Lena. It wasn't a trick of the light or a hallucination born of smoke inhalation. Daniel turns his back, his jaw set, trying to maintain the composure he has spent a decade building like a fortress. He walks toward his car, Emma's head buried in his shoulder, leaving the burning bus and the woman he once loved behind him in the shadows. He doesn't look back, but he can feel her eyes on his spine. The emergency lights of the fire trucks cast rhythmic flashes of red and blue against the storefronts of Riverway Boulevard, turning the scene into a surreal disco of disaster. Lena is sitting on the back of an ambulance, a silver shock blanket draped over her shoulders. She looks like a ghost in the flickering light. She isn't looking at the paramedics checking her pulse or the officer asking for her statement. Her eyes are fixed on the man standing by the silver sedan 50 yards away. Daniel stands with his back to her, talking quietly to Emma. He looks older, sturdier, like an oak tree that has weathered 100 storms. The lean, restless energy of the boy she knew has been replaced by the solid, unmoving presence of a man who has carried the weight of the world on his shoulders for a long time. Emma, with the sharp intuition of a child who has grown up with a single parent, looks back at the ambulance. "Dad, does that lady know you? She keeps looking at us like she's seen a miracle." Daniel pauses, his hand hovering over the car door handle. The metal feels cold. He doesn't turn around. "No, Emma, she's just scared. It was a big accident. Everyone is a little confused right now. Let's get you home." But the lie feels heavy and bitter in his mouth. He remembers Lena's eyes, the way they used to brighten when she laughed, and the way they looked when they said goodbye at a rainy train station a decade ago. They were supposed to be the forever couple. Everyone in their small town thought they would make it. But life had intervened. His father's sudden illness, a mountain of family debts, and a series of misunderstandings that neither of them was mature enough to bridge. He had chosen to stay and care for his father, eventually meeting his wife, Sarah, and starting a new chapter. Lena had vanished into the city, chasing the bright lights and the career she always dreamed of. When Sarah passed away, Daniel had closed the book on romance entirely, dedicating every spare second of his life to Emma. He hadn't thought of Lena in years, or so he told himself every night before he fell asleep. On the ambulance, Lena struggles to stay still. Her heart is racing, and it's not from the adrenaline of the fire. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees the smoke, the heat, and then Daniel appearing through the haze like a guardian angel. She recognizes the way he carries himself, the way he tilted his head to listen to the bus frame groaning. It was him. It was definitely him. She sees the little girl, Emma. She sees the tenderness in Daniel's movements, the way he brushes a stray hair from the child's forehead with a hand that just saved 30 people. A pang of something sharp and painful, regret perhaps, or a deep aching "what if," pierces through her shock. She realizes that while she was climbing the corporate ladder and filling her life with achievements, Daniel was building something real, a life, a family, a world she was never a part of. The crowd of onlookers begins to thin as the fire is brought under control. The smell of soot is still heavy in the air. Lena stands up, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. Her legs are shaky, and her lungs still feel like they're full of grit, but she has to know. She has to hear his voice again. Daniel hears her footsteps, the same light, rhythmic step he used to know so well. He stops, his hand on the steering wheel. He lets out a long, slow breath, trying to push down the memories that are threatening to overflow. He turns around. The two of them stand in the flickering light of the boulevard. The space between them is only 10 feet, but it feels like a canyon filled with 10 years of silence. "You saved me," Lena says, her voice trembling. "Again. You always were the one who showed up when things were falling apart." Daniel nods once, a short professional gesture. He keeps his distance. "I would have done it for anyone, Lena. This is what I do. Are you hurt? Do you need more oxygen?" Just a bit shaken," she says, her eyes searching his for a spark of the old Daniel. She looks at Emma, her expression softening into something incredibly vulnerable. "She's beautiful, Daniel. She looks just like you, especially around the eyes." "Her name is Emma," Daniel says, his voice protective, but not unkind. He pulls Emma closer to his side. There is a long, heavy silence. The city hums around them, the sound of distant sirens, the hiss of the fire hoses, the chatter of the news crews. The world is moving on, but for them, time is standing still. "I thought about you," Lena whispers, so quietly that Daniel almost misses it. "Over the years, I wondered where you went. I tried to find you once, but your old house was gone." Daniel looks at his daughter, then back at Lena. The pain in his chest is duller now, but it's still there. "I stayed right here. I grew up, Lena. I had to. Life didn't give me much of a choice." The silence stretches out, filled with everything they didn't say 10 years ago. Every apology that went unmailed. Every "I love you" that turned into goodbye. Finally, Lena speaks again. "Thank you for today, truly. You're a hero, Daniel." Daniel nods, opens his car door, and helps Emma inside. He doesn't feel like a hero. He feels like a man who just survived another storm. As he pulls away from the curb, he catches Lena's reflection in the rearview mirror. A lone, silver-clad figure standing under the streetlights, looking smaller and more lost than he ever remembered. The next day, the news is filled with the Riverway hero. A bystander's video has gone viral, a grainy, high-contrast clip of Daniel emerging from the smoke with Lena in his arms. The internet is calling him a modern guardian. The media wants a name, an interview, a story, but Daniel refuses to answer his door. He wants to return to the safety of his quiet routine, his tools, and Emma's invisible castles. However, the universe has other plans. Life has a way of forcing you to confront what you've buried. A week later, while Daniel is picking Emma up from her Saturday art class, he sees a familiar car parked near the entrance. Lena is leaning against the fender, holding a small gift bag. She doesn't look like the panicked victim from the bus anymore. She looks polished, professional, the successful woman she worked so hard to become. Yet there is a visible nervousness in the way she taps her foot and avoids eye contact with the other parents. Daniel stops, holding Emma's hand tightly. He feels a flash of irritation, followed by a deeper, more complicated emotion, a mix of nostalgia and fear. "Lena, you shouldn't have come here," he says as they approach. His voice is firm, setting a boundary. "I know," she says, her voice steadier than before, "but I couldn't just leave it at a thank you on a smoky sidewalk. I found your name through the news reports. I needed to see you in the daylight, without the fire between us." Freeze moment. Lena turns to a passing teacher who had helped Emma with her bags. "This is the man," she says softly, her voice filled with a reverence that makes Daniel wince. "This is the man who saved my life." The teacher smiles warmly, and Daniel feels the weight of the hero label pressing down on him like a physical burden. He hates the attention. He always has. He lurches back a step, his personal space feeling invaded by the ghosts of his past. "I need a few minutes, Daniel," Lena says, her eyes pleading. "Please, just 5 minutes." Daniel looks at Emma. He sees her curiosity. "Emma, go sit by the fountain and finish your snack. I'll be right here. Keep your eyes on me, okay?" Emma nods, looking at Lena with wide, observant eyes before skipping away. Daniel turns to Lena, his arms crossed over his chest. Why are you here, Lena? We said our goodbyes a long time ago. I have a life. She is my life. Lena looks down at the gift bag, her fingers tracing the ribbon. I searched for you, Daniel. For years, actually. I went back to your old neighborhood, but everything had changed. I didn't know about Sarah until I saw the news stories about your heroic single dad status. I'm so incredibly sorry. I can't imagine what you went through. Daniel softens just a fraction. The mention of his late wife always brings a touch of gentleness to his features. It was a long time ago. Life happens. I have Emma now. She's my everything. I don't live in the past anymore, Lena. I can't afford to. I'm not trying to drag you back there, Lena says, stepping closer, her scent, that same jasmine, hitting him again. But that accident, it felt like a sign. I was sitting on that bus thinking about how empty my life felt despite the promotions, the awards, and the fancy apartment. I felt like I was drifting. And then the air turned to fire, and there you were. You were the only thing in 10 years that felt real. Lena, I saved you because it was the right thing to do, Daniel says firmly, his technician's logic coming to the surface. Not because of what we used to be. I'm an avionics tech. I fix things that are broken. That's all today was. A repair. Lena nods, her eyes brimming with tears she refuses to let fall. She has her pride too. I know, and that's why I loved you, because you don't even realize how rare that is. You don't perform for the world, you just do what's right. She hands him the gift bag. It's for Emma, just some professional-grade art supplies. I remembered you saying she liked to draw. I saw her sketch pad in the car that day. Daniel takes the bag, his fingers brushing hers. The contact sends a jolt through him, a sharp, electric reminder of a time when their lives were intertwined like the roots of an old oak tree. For a second, the school parking lot disappears, and they are back in the rain, 20 years old and full of hope. Daniel, Lena says, her voice dropping to a whisper, I don't expect anything. I don't expect a happily ever after or a rewind button. But I'm not the girl I was at 22. I'm not running away from the hard things anymore. I just want to know the man you've become. Emma runs back then, tugging on Daniel's sleeve. Dad, can we go? I want to show you my new drawing. Daniel looks at his daughter, his present and his future, then at the woman who was once his entire world. He sees the bridge between his past and his present. He realizes that while he was busy surviving and protecting Emma, he might have forgotten how to let anyone else in. Thank you for the gift, Lena, Daniel says. His voice is quieter now. Lena turns to leave, her shoulders slumped slightly. If you're ever free, if Emma wants to go to that new science museum, I'd love to take you both. No pressure, just a conversation, as friends who survived a fire. Daniel watches her walk away. He doesn't say yes. He doesn't say no. But as he walks Emma to the car, he feels a strange light sensation in his chest. The fire on Riverway Boulevard didn't just burn a bus, it burned away the heavy, suffocating walls he had built round his heart. 2 weeks later, the three of them are sitting in a small, sun-drenched cafe near the park. The windows are open, letting in the cool autumn breeze. It's a quiet afternoon, the kind where time seems to slow down just to let people breathe. The air is filled with the comforting smell of roasted coffee, cinnamon, and the sound of Emma's colored pencils scratching against a new sketch pad. The atmosphere is delicate, like fine porcelain that has been cracked and glued back together. No one mentions the word love. No one talks about getting back together. Instead, they talk about the middle years, the long, winding years they spent apart. Lena tells them about her travels, the cold, lonely winters in Chicago, the hectic, ego-driven pace of London, and the crushing realization that the more she achieved, the emptier her heart felt. She speaks with a newfound patience, a stark contrast to the impulsive, restless girl Daniel used to know. She's learned that success is a cold bedfellow without someone to share it with. Daniel shares the journey of being a single father. He talks about the sleepless nights when Emma was a baby, and he was terrified he'd drop her. He talks about the fear of doing it all wrong, and the quiet, breathtaking joy of watching her grow into a person with her own thoughts and invisible castles. He realizes, as he speaks, that he hasn't shared these deep-seated fears with anyone since Sarah died. Emma interrupts occasionally with innocent, wandering questions that keep them grounded. Did you have a dog when you were little, Miss Lena? Why do you wear that shiny necklace? Does it have a secret power? Lena answers every question with genuine interest and a gentle laugh. She doesn't talk down to Emma. She listens to her with the focus of a person who understands how important it is to be heard. Daniel watches them, noticing the way Lena's presence seems to balance the energy at the table. She isn't trying to replace anyone. She is simply making space for herself in the silence. I spent so much time apologizing for things I didn't do, Lena says quietly, staring into her coffee cup, and not enough time saying the things I should have. I was so busy running towards something, I didn't realize what I was running away from. Daniel nods. He understands that better than anyone. We were kids, Lena. We didn't know how to handle the weight of the world. We thought we had to choose between ourselves and each other. I'm sorry, Daniel, for the way I left, for the silence that lasted a decade. I accept that, Daniel says. His voice is steady and soft, devoid of the sharp bitterness that had defined his memories of her for so long. I don't blame you anymore. I think we both needed to become who we are now before we could sit at this table without breaking. They don't make any grand promises. They don't plan a life together. They simply agree to meet again next Sunday at the park to feed the ducks. It's a small step, but it's a step forward. As they leave the cafe, Daniel sends a quick text to his sister, who has been worried about him for years. Emma had a good day. I think I'm finally okay. We had coffee with an old friend. He realizes that saving someone from a fire is a physical act of adrenaline and muscle memory, but healing, truly healing a broken spirit, takes a different kind of courage. It takes the courage to be vulnerable, to forgive oneself, and to move slow enough to let the light back in through the cracks. A few weeks pass. The season has fully turned. The trees in the park have transformed into a vibrant, fiery orange and deep crimson, shedding their leaves in a gentle, spinning rain of color. The air is crisp and smells of wood smoke and damp earth. Daniel, Emma, and Lena are walking along a shaded path. Emma is running ahead, her bright yellow jacket a splash of color against the fallen leaves, trying to catch them before they hit the ground. The scene is natural, devoid of the forced tension that usually accompanies a reunion. Daniel still puts Emma first. He always will. He checks her jacket zipper, ensures she's hydrated, and listens to her elaborate stories about the leaf monsters. Lena respects those boundaries with a quiet grace. She doesn't push for more than Daniel's willing to give. She understands that to love Daniel is to love the world he has built for his daughter, a world where she is a guest who is slowly being invited to stay. They have learned to talk slowly, savoring the words. They discuss their favorite books, their shared fears about the future, and the small, mundane details of their days. The broken toaster, the project at work, the new art teacher. It is a relationship built on the solid, weathered ground of friendship rather than the shifting, volatile sands of youthful passion. Daniel realizes that his life doesn't have to be a solo flight. He realizes that while he is a capable pilot who can handle a storm alone, having a co-pilot makes the long journey less exhausting and the views much more beautiful. He looks at Lena and sees not just the girl from the past, but the woman who stood her ground in a fire. Emma stops and looks back at them, her face flushed with excitement. Dad, can we see Miss Lena again tomorrow? She knows where the best ice cream shop is, the one with the sprinkles that change color. Daniel looks at Lena. She is smiling, her eyes bright with a hope that isn't desperate anymore. She is happy just to be there, in the cold air, walking with them. She doesn't interject. She waits for his answer, giving him the space to choose. Daniel smiles back, a genuine, warm expression that reaches his eyes and crinkles the skin at the corners. It's the look of a man who has finally stopped holding his breath. If you want to, Emma, we can definitely do that. Sprinkles sound like a great idea. The three of them walk together, their silhouettes lengthening in the soft, honey-colored evening sun. They aren't a perfect family, and they have a lot of history to navigate, but they are a family in the making, not because of a tragic accident on a bus, but because of a conscious, daily choice to show up for each other. The message is clear to both of them now. Some connections are strong enough to survive the fire. Some people are meant to find their way back to each other, not when they are perfect, but when they are ready to be whole. Respect is the foundation, love is the bridge, and sometimes a burning bus on a Tuesday afternoon is just the universe's way of saying it's finally time to stop running and come home to the person you were always meant to be. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to Chip Healing Stories. The best endings are the ones we build ourselves.